coming up on Eternal Companions.
The fact that he knows that she was adopted from, like,
I hope he knows.
I assume that he knows. They've been together for 11 years. Yeah. I assume that he knows that she was adopted out of a situation that involved drugs. The level of disrespect that you have to then do that is alarming. Like, that to me is like, it's not just like you're having a personal thing. That's like very disrespectful, in my opinion.
I wonder, like, when the first time he used cocaine was.
Welcome back to the Eternal Companions podcast. We're your hosts, Scott and Sarah.
On this podcast, we share the secret to developing and maintaining a long-lasting and fulfilling relationship.
Tonight, it's after hours. It's an after hours podcast tonight. Wow. Today, whenever you're listening to it, we are going to be reading some Reddit posts from r/MarriageAdvice and getting each other's opinions on them. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah, these are fun because, one, we get to discuss some drama.
It's almost like reality TV, but written form.
And also, you know, we get to talk about what maybe we would do in this situation, or some stories from our own relationship.
What I love most about this is that none of our friends are directly implicated. Like, I'm really happy to hear that our friends aren't experiencing this drama and it's someone else. So let's get into it.
Start one. I haven't read these.
I just mostly read their titles and was like, oh, that sounds interesting.
So, okay. Let's start. Wow. I have to give you a spoiler. Here we go. This post is titled, I don't know how to tell my spouse I don't love them anymore.
Oh.
So that's... Whew.
That's a bummer.
That's tough.
Okay, let's hear it.
Okay. I don't know how to tell my spouse of 3 years I don't love them anymore.
That's early.
That is pretty quick, yeah. There's been too much stuff going on, and I really don't love them anymore. I don't know where it went wrong or how to fix it. Lots of stuff. I don't know if I even want to fix it. I'm constantly stressed, tired, angry, and annoyed by my spouse. In the past 5 years, my spouse has gone months without a job because something even slightly minor happens, and it's, quote, I don't want to work here anymore. Then doesn't have another job lined up before quitting. Spouse has had 5 jobs in 5 years, stayed at one for 2.5 years until we moved states with their family. We've been together 5 years, and I can't keep doing this. I constantly feel all the pressure to buy everything, and it's like nothing is ever enough. I work full-time and parent our child full-time as well. I never get a real break to do anything I want to outside of being a parent and full-time employee. I know I feel resentment towards my partner, and I don't know how or if I can fix it. I feel like a single parent and a single married person. My spouse barely touches me, and when they do, I just want it to be over as soon as possible. Yikes. Because it's cutting into time I can spend doing something else. I don't know. Maybe I'm in the wrong, and maybe they're trying their best. Ooh.
Well, that's heavy, especially for being together for only 5 years and being married for only 3 years. That's a lot of negative feelings.
It is.
My initial thoughts... They did cover it. They said, I know that I'm feeling resentment toward my spouse. But at the same time, I'm going to say something that might be a little bit dramatic or controversial.
Uh-oh.
In my opinion, if you no longer love your spouse because of these situational things happening, you never did love your spouse. Ooh. And like... Maybe you love them as a friend or a person.
Sure. Yeah, let's define love here.
Like in a healthy, long-lasting marriage, you are not just in love with your spouse. You unconditionally love your spouse, and this was conditional love.
Yeah, this was conditional upon, you know, a good financial situation and a stress-free environment.
And who is going to have that their entire marriage?
Nobody.
You're extremely lucky if you do, or like delusional. I don't know.
So
You know.
let's talk a bit about unconditional love.
Sure.
And what does that mean, or what does that look like? You know, could you give us an example?
Yeah, let me start by asking you a question. Do you feel like we have achieved unconditional love?
I do, yeah.
High five. I also feel that way. So that's why I feel qualified to speak on this. So to like do a simple definition, unconditional love is exactly what it sounds like. It is love that persists regardless of your conditions that you are in. And it's not, there's no requirements. So your spouse could be upholding all of their vows and going above and beyond, and you would love them the same as if they were upholding none of their vows. And that doesn't mean that you don't get hurt in the relationship. It doesn't mean that things have to always be perfect in your eyes. It just means that the love never leaves.
Yeah.
In my opinion. That's my definition.
So the love leaving would be, in my eyes, things like you no longer support them.
Right.
Right? I have a job, don't have a job, I'm over it. That's the love being gone. Right? You can still have unconditional love and be frustrated.
Yeah, disappointed.
You can feel like, I love you so much, like I want you to succeed. I want us to be together. And it's very hard if, I'm pulling all the weight.
Right.
But like you come as a support and as a team, right? Looking for a solution rather than giving up and tossing it aside.
I completely agree. So let's kind of make this personal. What are some situations in our marriage that you've experienced where you feel like either I showed you or you showed me unconditional love? Like, when has that been very apparent to you?
Pretty early on in our marriage. You graduated from college. You had a, career job.
Ugh, it was horrible. I hate having a job.
And I was a student, was a full-time student, and I worked part-time at Chick-fil-A.
That was a good time for us.
And I made very little money. There's some, weeks that I worked, most weeks I probably worked 15 hours for quite a time.
Right, because you were in school full-time in like the hardest degree program.
It was difficult, but like financially, it was 100% on your shoulders.
Yeah.
And I wasn't like, contributing financially. I bought us gas, I think. I think I paid for gas.
Maybe. I don't know. I drive a Jeep. It's expensive.
I think that was a time when, it would be reasonable to get upset. But, we shared finances.
Oh, yeah. I never saw it as like me lifting the whole team. I just...
Exactly.
And yeah.
That's the perspective.
Yeah. I agree with that. I think that a time that you showed me unconditional love is the whole time. But like if I'm thinking of a specific example, it would probably be like mostly I have felt it in discussing like mental health. Like I've experienced really severe depression and anxiety at times, like so much so that I determined I needed to like take a step back from work before, and then it kind of, the same thing happened with you. Like you kind of took the responsibility of like maintaining the finances of the household for a couple months while I was trying to figure out if I should continue with a business opportunity or like get a job, like a corporate job. And I felt like you were very understanding of what I was going through and very supportive, and you tried to learn to the best of your ability about what I was experiencing and going through so you could be compassionate. And I never felt like our relationship was on the line. So like because of us exhibiting unconditional love for one another, I feel like we have both been able to grow and develop as individuals without fear. Like we're able to try new things and become new people and have new opinions and perspectives on the world without fear that the other person is going to get up and leave.
That is an interesting point. Yeah, we do. We try different things. We try different business ventures.
And we're so dumb sometimes too,
Yeah, sometimes we are super dumb and wasteful or irresponsible. But there isn't like I don't want to say there aren't any repercussions.
Well, there's not a repercussion to
not,
this, our marriage commitment.
Exactly.
There's nothing that has ever gone on in our relationship that has ever made me question our stability.
Yeah.
Ever. Our relationship is the absolute most stable thing in our lives, in my opinion.
And everything else is just
constantly moving.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, and I think that's the way to have a successful marriage is to make sure that you're prioritizing that stability.
Yeah, right. Imagine if you're married, right, and you've made a lifelong commitment to someone to be with them forever, but you think your job is more important.
I don't understand that.
Your work, right? Which, is work. Why do you even value work?
You hear me say this all the time, but on my deathbed, I'm actually really not going to be oh, I should have responded to that email. I will have no...
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't even have words to describe how dumb that
be
sounds.
Setting up a bunch of emails to go out. Schedule the emails for after you've passed on.
Right. That's that's so funny. Best wishes.
Cheers.
That's so funny. You know what I mean, though? It's there's nothing in my life that's more important than you and our relationship. And I think that I would not be able to feel that way if I wasn't feeling unconditional love from you. I can exhibit unconditional love to you, but if I also wasn't feeling it in return, I think that I would have some of those insecurities.
Yeah.
And maybe I would start to prioritize work or a friendship or a hobby, And
I think, it makes sense from a psychological standpoint because if you start to think okay, this relationship isn't going to last, right? If those thoughts start creeping in, then you're I better find something else to latch onto.
Exactly.
Something else that'll be there after this relationship's gone.
Right.
So I'll still be stable financially or, whatever.
Right.
Okay, so...
What was this post about?
The first comment was, you said that, hey, you didn't have
This was a conditional
love.
relationship.
Right,
Yeah.
this was conditional love, or is.
Yes.
And so, we can't just say, hey, the solution is love better.
Right.
Right.
That requires therapy, probably.
Yeah, definitely therapy. Loads of talking, communication, and figure out what your love languages are and do those things with each other. And you can learn to love people more than you do.
Oh, yeah.
That's important. I think that if you serve the people that you love, you will begin to love the people that you serve.
That makes sense. Yeah. I think that's really nice. I think the second part of this post that kind of started ringing alarm bells for me is there's no, and I understand that this person wrote this pretty much in a fit of rage,
Probably.
But has there been any consideration for why their spouse is behaving in this way? To me, when I read that, I'm their spouse is having a depressive episode. That, that's where I go to. If you're not able to hold a job, you're not able to maintain your household, you're not able to complete any parenting tasks, you have low libido, all of these things that they're talking about, I'm their partner is depressed. And instead of you trying to help them get into therapy, get medication, work through it, you're saying, I don't love you.
Right.
What in the world?
And
that's an assumption.
Let's give the benefit of a doubt.
Yes.
Of the doubt. Let's give the benefit of the doubt that they tried to help.
Right.
But obviously it was unsuccessful.
Yeah, let's try that.
It is a two-way thing, right?
It is.
We don't want, obviously, there is a person who's at fault.
Yeah.
Which is the person who the post is written about, right? The
Right.
person not contributing. However, there's never just one party at fault, right? Because in a marriage, it's a team.
Always.
And so it's just the marriage isn't working. It's not due to one or the other person.
Yeah.
It's a team effort to fix it. So yeah, the things that they've tried to help didn't work. And so they should probably explore more options. They should discuss why. And maybe there should be a change in the game plan. Right. We talked about this on, I think, the previous episode, but just those fair play cards that you mentioned, that I thought were a really neat idea. That would be an interesting exercise in this relationship to see who's doing what.
Yep.
And then, maybe there could be a reallocation of responsibilities. And it's possible that, one person in the relationship doesn't have to have a job or a full-time job. And they could be doing lots of other things.
Yeah. And with those cards, too, I just think this is such a cool idea to have these cards. Like, it's very possible that the person who wrote this post could see that there maybe are some things that their partner is doing that they're completely unaware of. And I think that could help, like, reintroduce some compassion. Because at this point, it seems that there is no compassion left, likely because they did try to intervene several times. I'm just thinking of any way to salvage this, Yeah. But I think that'd be a really good exercise for them.
See who's doing what.
And it could be a wake-up call for the person who isn't participating in the way that they maybe should be.
I bet it would help both people. And then, after you figure out who's doing what currently, there should be a game plan made.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Make a plan for what you think will help things, and then come back in a month.
Yep.
And say, did this work?
Right.
And if it didn't work, make a new plan.
Yeah.
Right? It's an active approach to making a relationship work.
Right. In this situation, the question was, how do I approach my spouse and tell them I don't love them anymore?
That's a good question. Do you want me to give my answer?
Yeah.
So I think you should want to save the marriage, even if you are not feeling that you love them, right? And so that's your approach. You shouldn't go to them thinking, hey, I'm going to have this conversation and then we're going to file for divorce.
Right.
Because that's not good. That's so sad.
Especially because we did hear that our kid's involved.
That makes it even more difficult on everyone and sad. And so I think you can have an official discussion at some point. You approach the other person, say, hey, I would like to talk to you about something serious. Do you feel up to that right now? Like, when should we talk?
Yeah.
So that they are aware and no one's caught off guard. And then you should say, like, don't be afraid to tell the truth.
Yeah.
Say, I'm not feeling love for you anymore. This is why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. This is maybe what you're doing, and this is how that makes me feel.
Right.
And I don't want to feel this way. Right? I want to feel love for you. I want this to work. Can we work together to fix this?
Yeah. I think that's a really good way to go into it. And I think that this is something that I've asked my friends when they come to me telling me that they are not feeling love for their spouse, which unfortunately has happened a couple times. I ask them, okay, well, when was the last time that you remember that you did? And think about that time and think about what's happening now and see what the actual differences are. Because sometimes there's like a very clear answer. And in this case, this person is saying they're just like worn out pretty much. But, you could even describe that to your partner, saying like the last time that I really felt excited about our relationship was when this dynamic was happening or whatever. And like, I'd love to get back to that. Did you enjoy that time? And try to see how they felt then and how they're feeling now, because they might be feeling the same way,
right?
And so I think just
it's not, it's going both ways probably.
Right. I think it's pretty rare that there's a relationship where one person is like all in and the other person is like absolutely checked out. That's pretty rare. But yeah, I think just reminding yourself of the good times and trying to get back to that point. It doesn't have to be exactly like, obviously you grow and you change, but getting back emotionally to that point is a good way to find your way back. I don't know.
I think that's great.
Okay.
I think let's read another one.
Okay. This one is titled, How Can I Help My Mom Talk to My Dad About Their Marital Issues? For my 14 female. So 14-year-old.
Teenager.
Yeah.
Is writing this.
For my whole life, my mother has never complained, even though she was taking care of 3 undiagnosed autistic and chaotic children all alone. Because of this, I thought my dad was the hardest worker in the family, going to work from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. My dad is very routinely and also autistic, and he would get very, very upset when dinner wasn't ready as soon as he got home. My mom tried
10 p.m.
Yeah, at 10 p.m.
Oh, yikes.
With 3 kids at home. My mom just tried to chalk it up to the autism, but eventually had enough and tried to set some boundaries. He got so pissed that my mom decided it was too much of a hassle and didn't bother setting boundaries at all anymore.
Oh, okay.
When my mom gave birth to me, she had to stay in the hospital for 3 days. She was excited as my dad would finally have to manage the house for himself and my 2 brothers. When she arrived home, she discovered that his family hired a cleaning service who took care of the kids, house, pets, and served him food. My dad has been off of work for a year and a half, but still insists he's doing half of the work. My mom no longer has the energy to argue with him and just puts up with it. I talked with her today, and it was so hard seeing her almost break down, like the 30 years of having to do everything herself was finally getting to her. Afterwards, she apologized and said she shouldn't talk about her husband that way. I told her that she's human too and that communication is the best way to do this. Her past therapist said she needed to be very blunt with him, but that's something my mom struggles with. Does anyone have any advice for what we can say to my dad or get through to him that marriage is teamwork?
Wow. Okay, how do you want to approach this? Do you want to talk about advice we would give to the teenage author for what she should tell her parents, or should we just talk about the relationship between the parents?
Let's talk about the relationship between the parents, because I'm of the opinion that this poor girl shouldn't have to be involved.
Absolutely.
You know, so I would say, like, my advice for her really quick is, like, I'm so sorry. Like, that's my advice. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like, you shouldn't have to be involved. So, like, I'd rather talk to the parents, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if we were talking to the parents, what would we say to them instead of her? Because I feel so bad for her.
No, I had some times as a teenager when I witnessed arguments, some pretty bad fights, you know, just in the living room in the middle of the day. And I tried to play like mediator.
How old were you?
Probably like 16.
So a 16-year-old teenage boy is playing mediator in his parents' marriage?
I tried. Yeah, I tried to, you know, I wouldn't call it mediator.
Right.
I didn't quite know how to like facilitate a discussion, but I did know how to tell them like, hey, you're just yelling at each other the same thing over and over. So like let's communicate differently, right? And I brought that up. That's not something that a teenager should have to do. That's, you know, especially with their own parents, right? If it's a teenager mediating a discussion between their other teenage friends,
that's one thing.
That's great. That's cool.
That's awesome.
But
with your parents, like, I think that it's perfectly appropriate for children to see their parents have discussions. And like, if our daughter sees us disagreeing and can see us work through that, that's really awesome, because we don't have screaming matches.
Right.
You know, but she should never have to feel like she has to interject herself for someone's safety or mental well-being. You know, I think that's where that boundary is. Yeah,
it should be like debate club.
Yeah.
You know, in a way where like, if you're in a debate, I assume it's against the rules to yell at each other.
I would hope so. I don't know.
I didn't do debate. But it's very orderly. There's rules.
There's respect.
Right? And there's respect and logic.
Right. That's important.
Reasoning, logical, emotional.
Yeah.
There's reasoning rather than unreasonable.
Right. So with this post, I'm getting a similar vibe to the first one, where there's an unfair distribution of labor.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
You know, there's
I'm
that.
not sure has the mom been working the whole time? I thought at first she was stay-at-home mom.
Yeah, and now it sounds like the dad hasn't been working for a year and a half, and the mom is doing it.
Is the mom now working,
you
think?
It seems like it.
Man. Yeah, it seems really tough.
Yeah. Seems rough for
Seems
sure.
really rough.
Oh, it's late at night. Okay, so let's jump into the middle paragraph, which was the one that I think we just need to get out of the way. What was going on with his family getting the servants?
Crazy.
Essentially.
That's crazy. So he's at home for a few days.
For 3 days, for the first time in the relationship, to take care of the kids in the house.
I still think he should help her. He should be at the hospital.
Yeah, that's
right?
step number one.
At least for the birth.
Yeah.
And up to the birth. But also probably the first day after.
We just had a baby. Could you imagine me being left alone in the hospital?
You would be dead, I think. I don't know. You wouldn't be able to, turn the lights off and go to sleep. You have to sleep with the lights on. Giving birth is an extremely strenuous physical activity for a long, extended period of time.
Yeah.
It's like running a marathon, or a few, probably.
Yeah, for me it was several. And so if I was left alone to fend for myself and my daughter, I would be so pissed off, and then I get home and realize that you've been weighted on hand and foot. I would light the house on fire. Could you imagine if I came home and your mom had gotten you a maid and a chef? I would be like, what?
And so also, where's the money coming from? And why is it only happening now when mom is gone?
When mom is gone and she's needed help for 30 years. Also, is anybody making her food in the hospital?
Right.
What's
did anyone
going on?
bring anything or visit?
Okay, so that
Seems
makes me think that there's
one-sided.
a weird thing going on, I'm feeling like this is a strange dynamic in this family where the father is seen as being on a pedestal.
Yeah.
And he potentially has I don't know, this is where my mind is going, Vinny and his mom in Jersey Shore. I feel like this is what would happen. Vinny's mom, I think her name is Paula.
She'd come down and do all the laundry.
Yeah, she'd come down and she'd take care of everybody while Vinny's wife is at the hospital giving birth. That's what would happen, and that's weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
I think...
I've been watching Jersey Shore lately, if you can't tell. That's just really strange, and to me it shows that there may be a lack of respect for the mom in the household.
Yeah. And the work that mom does.
Yeah.
It's not fair, right?
No.
I feel like objectively, from a third party, this is a very unfair relationship.
We need the fair play cards again.
Those would probably work. Right?
Are we going to get sponsored?
We should, not us. We're
This is not
sponsored.
We haven't even used them. I just saw them on TikTok.
I'm interested in that, though. We probably should,
Yeah,
just for
do
fun.
it. That'd be a fun podcast idea. We
would be
could do it.
fun.
Okay, anyway. So, yeah, there's an unfair distribution of labor, and it's affecting the mom so greatly that the daughter is now noticing it. That is completely inappropriate.
Yeah.
And so I'll just wrap up my advice here, because what more can we say? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Again.
Sorry
that this
to the
is
author.
happening. Your parents should be handling things privately, or diplomatically, and you shouldn't feel the responsibility to fix your parents' marriage. Get the fair play cards for your dad for Christmas.
Yeah. Or book them some couples counseling or something.
Yeah, at this point. And give your mom a big hug and tell her that you appreciate all that she does.
All right, one more.
Woo-hoo.
The title of this post is Husband is Addict and he thinks he is hiding it. It's not funny, but it kind of is. It's a silly way of saying this. My husband keeps buying cocaine and he thinks I don't know. Yeah. So, like I said, it's not funny, but it's kind of like he's sneaking it.
Cocaine?
Oh, boy.
Okay.
Me and his best friend have sat him down for many interventions. This seems to open the doors to communication and change, but then it eventually goes back to how it was. I really do not know what to do next. He typically has an addictive personality, but in all the years we have been together, he has not had an issue. So it's recent, I guess.
But you've sat him down several times?
Yeah.
Okay, anyway.
Next sentence. The past few years have been quite difficult with business, buying a house, and his best friend committed suicide.
Oh.
I found out about his issues with addiction when we were having personal marital issues, and I checked his WhatsApp messages. Who uses WhatsApp? WhatsApp. Am I saying it right, or is it just WhatsApp?
I've heard WhatsApp.
Let's move on. I saw him planning purchasing cocaine with his friend. He initially admitted it and cried and seemed to have huge guilt, but I have now caught him lying and doing it again multiple times. Yikes, that's tough. This is not the life I want to live.
No.
Living checking up on him, living having to lock him inside the house at night, parentheses, his request to help him. He said, lock me in so I can't go to my drug deal. That's what we do with the baby. We close the door and she's locked in the room. So she can't go get cocaine.
Yeah, that's the reason.
That's not why. I come from addiction and was adopted because my addicted parents couldn't look after me.
Okay.
This is terrible. I was saved from a life of this.
Yep.
I now, 5 years into a marriage and 11 years into a relationship, I am having to deal with this. I never wanted this life and to be constantly on high alert. I know this is affecting my mental health and peace of mind. He is also buying cocaine from extremely dodgy people who drop it off at the house because he can't go out to pick it up. He's putting me in danger by doing this, and he seems to not care at all.
Okay.
So now I know why we have relationship issues and money issues. I just don't know where to go from here. I don't know what more I can do to help. I am on the verge of telling family, as I have tried very hard to keep this hidden. But he doesn't seem to care that he may lose me and the life we have built. P.S. I pay for the house, car, and food, cook, clean, and work. I feel like I am killing myself doing this while he is sniffing his contributions up his nose.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So
round 3 fair play cards. I swear, every single relationship problem is like, obviously there's a lot more going on here than just an unfair distribution of labor, but that's like another thing. It's baffling to me.
And so each of these so far we have seen finances be probably number one cause of stress and disagreement.
Right.
And then 2 is unfair. It's just not fair, like the workload.
Right.
Right. And that leads to resentment.
Yep.
And so we've kind of hit that already.
Yeah.
Let's try to focus on something else about this post here.
Okay. The fact that he knows that she was adopted from like
I hope he knows.
I assume that he knows. They've been together for 11 years. Yeah. I assume that he knows that she was adopted out of a situation that involved drugs. The level of disrespect that you have to then do that is alarming. Like that to me is like it's not just like you're having a personal thing. That's like very disrespectful in my opinion.
I wonder like when the first time he used cocaine was.
Like are you suggesting maybe it wasn't within the bounds of the relationship? It was like
it's possible.
Like way earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In which case like it probably should have been disclosed.
Oh yeah.
You should if you're going into a relationship, a serious relationship, you should disclose addictions and substance abuse.
I feel like you should disclose even casual substance use.
Yeah.
Like, hey, by the way, when I was in college, I did whatever. Mm-hmm. Or like, just let your partner know what's going on with like your past. Why not?
Yeah. So there's definitely a possibility that this addiction has existed.
Right.
And then it's been, maybe dormant for a while and has resurfaced.
Potentially from the stress, the suicide.
Yeah. And that's super unfortunate. Obviously, hard drugs is a very poor choice of coping mechanism.
Oh, yeah.
It's maybe the worst choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, well, and I'm not like an addiction expert.
Right. We don't have much experience with addiction.
So,
like, and we have some family members that have experienced substance abuse, but not to like a situation where it would directly affect us.
Yeah. Not really within our lifetimes.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
Maybe a little. But.
Yeah. It's not ever been in our marriage, which I'm very grateful for. But I think like the question to answer here is, should she tell family? And in my opinion, I think yes.
Yeah.
I think that there have been interventions. He's asking to be locked away at night. There's scary people coming to the door. I think that she should confide in somebody because she is carrying not only the load of all of the household maintenance and like functionality on her shoulders, she's also carrying this other burden of knowledge.
Yeah, huge secret.
She's like thinking about her safety, his health, their finances, all because of a drug abuse problem, you know, and like the police could come to her door at any time. Cocaine is not legal.
Right.
You know? So that's like a huge weight to be carrying, and she should share that burden. If her husband isn't able to share it because he's the cause of it, I feel like it's appropriate to inform his family and say, I need help with this.
Absolutely. And again, the perspective going in is a place of support.
Absolutely.
Right? It's not like...
You're not tattling.
He does cocaine. You're going to tell his mom, right? You should tell the family with exactly like, I need your help with this.
Yeah.
He needs our help. Let's figure out a way
to get him into treatment or whatever it is.
Which, that's the next thing is an addiction with a hard drug needs treatment, like real treatment.
Like medical intervention as well
people
as psychological.
People who know what they're doing.
Yeah. It can't be effective if it's just like you and your pals.
You sit down and he's like, oh yeah, like I know, I totally want to stop. And you're like, okay, cool. Like it's not going to work.
Right.
It doesn't work with a drug like that.
Right. It's scary stuff. And like, especially because her safety is being affected at this point, I feel like she definitely has the right to do whatever she needs to do to feel comfortable.
I agree with that.
That's such a bummer. I mean, to each their own, but like...
No, don't do drugs.
Don't do drugs. Don't do them.
Why would you do drugs? You can find other ways to, usually the reason behind it is something bad is going on in my life.
Right.
So you can make good things happen.
What is like one of your coping mechanisms instead of using hard drugs?
A lot of mine are religious.
Yeah.
Right? Prayer and reading scriptures and talking to you are probably my main coping mechanisms.
Do you have any coping mechanisms that maybe are like could be seen as negative? For me, I know mine is like scrolling on TikTok. Like if I'm like having anxious thoughts or whatever, I can find myself just like doom scrolling is what I've heard it be called. Like that's a negative one that I have.
And that's basically, like fight, flight, freeze.
Yep.
That's freeze.
It is.
Right?
Yeah.
And I do that as well. I wouldn't call it a coping mechanism. I would call it a loss of executive function. Right. My brain is
turning off.
I'm not using my frontal cortex to make decisions right now.
I thought I was one that had a psychology degree. What the heck? That's funny. Yeah, I agree with you, and I'm proud that neither one of us has turned to cocaine.
Yeah, me too.
High five.
Thank goodness.
Poor people. Everybody get the fair play cards. That's what I have. That's my summary for the episode.
Yeah. I think
that's about it.
Allocate things fairly, love each other, respect each other.
Have a good time.
Have a good time.
Have fun and be yourself.
That's the key. That's the secret. We'll see you guys on the next episode. Share this with people if you thought it was helpful or entertaining. And feel free to share stories or links to things you want us to take a look at.
And if you are having a relationship problem that you want us to discuss, don't have to post it on Reddit and hope that I'll see it. I'll have a little form in the description.
Anonymous.
Anonymous. And you can fill that out and we'll read it and give you some advice. Bye.
That's it.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode.
Do you have a love story worth sharing? Head to eternalcompanionspodcast.com to be a guest on our show.
And don't forget to check out the show notes.
See you next week.